believe that understanding your art supplies is key to drawing anything and every texture that you want. So today I will be going through all of my tools and showing you why. How I see it, hyperrealism consists of 4 basic steps.
The first one is shading. The second one is blending. Step number 3 is highlighting. And finally, we have details. And then we have the extras, which are just tools that I use on a regular basis that don't really fit any category.
Now let's go over each tool to show you exactly what I use them for. You will also notice that some of the tools get repeated in more than one category, which just comes to show how versatile they can be. So let's begin.
Okay, we're starting with shading. I like to use the softest charcoal pencils, which are the 6B and 4B, to shade the darkest areas. So this could be hair, or if I'm drawing like a leopard or a tiger, the darkest spots that they have, I would shade with these kinds of pencils applied directly onto the paper instead of using charcoal powder, which is usually what I go for lighter, more grayish tones. Next, we have the Conte Appareil 3B pencil, which I love for doing black backgrounds. I also like to use it on top of regular charcoal. This helps achieve more depth since this pencil is darker than charcoal, so you just blend it in and it blends in seamlessly. And I also use it to draw some darker black hairs on top of already black fur. Next, we have the compressed graphite and charcoal sticks, which I love using to make my own powder using sandpaper or drywall sanding screen. I apply these powders using either makeup brushes or beauty blenders. Next, we have graphite pencils, which I use to enhance some shadows with a more controlled medium. I also recently tried these gray charcoal sticks and I love them for shading in larger areas of skin. Moving on to blending tools, we have the kitchen sponge, which is a new one. I use it to apply the grayscale charcoal without putting too much pressure into it, so it allows me to blend more effortlessly. Then we have one of the most versatile tools ever, the beauty blender. I have them in 2 sizes, large and small. And talking about sizes, we have these soft knives, which are basically tiny beauty blenders on a stick. Moving on, I have a wide variety of makeup brushes, which differ in sizes, fluffiness, and hardness. I like to use them to soften up some layers. I also use them to blend in harsh lines. And the ones with harder bristles I use to blend in charcoal that has been directly applied from the pencil so it sticks onto the paper more. Next we have blending stumps, which I don't really use a lot except when I have to blend in like tiny details. Step number 3, highlighting tools. I use beauty blenders for pretty much anything, including creating highlights. I take the clean parts of the beauty blender and rub them onto my charcoal. It picks some of it up, and when it's finished, it looks super blended and perfect. I also use this pencil eraser to create highlights on areas that are too small to use any of my other tools on. Then I think the most popular tool to create highlights is the kneaded eraser, which is great because you can just mold it into whatever size or shape that you want. And finally, we have this dust-free eraser from Faber-Castell, which happens to be my favorite. I love it for creating highlights, especially when drawing fur. Like, it just picks up pretty much all of the charcoal or graphite on your paper. And finally, step number 4, details. I like to use charcoal pencils, but this time I use the HB and 2B since the tip is harder and it kind of works more like a graphite pencil, except it's super dark. So you can create very sharp details and sharp lines. And again, we have graphite pencils, but this time they are also hard, which I just prefer for drawing small and tiny details. Next, we have small makeup brushes, which I also use for creating the smallest details. To me, details are always tiny, so you have to be precise and very delicate. And all of these small tools, including this pencil eraser, help me achieve that. And then, as always, a favorite of mine, the Tombow Mono Zero eraser. I use this for drawing fur, hair, also any details, like any small precise details that I need. This eraser has my back. A continuación, we have the electric eraser, which is basically a mono zero eraser on steroids. It is perfect for drawing sharp edges, and also when you play around with how much pressure you put into it, you can create very cool textures. And I use these pens at the end of my drawings when I feel like I need to accentuate some very tiny areas. I don't like to overdo it with these pens. And again, we have the kneaded eraser. I mold it into the finest point, and I use it to create skin texture, pores, and basically any texture. Then we have this beauty that I use similarly to the graphite pencils. And finally, this embossing tool that I use to create indentations on the paper so that I can draw better and more realistic looking fur. And at last, we're almost finished. These are some extra tools that pretty much assist me when I'm drawing. Number one, the balloon inflator. This one comes in handy to blow off extra dust when shading in dark backgrounds. I use this dusting brush pretty much every 5 seconds. It is extremely handy. Then we have the cutter and sandpaper. I use these to shape my erasers, just like this. After I finish every drawing, I spray it with fixative 2 to 3 coats. I don't have the patience to sharpen my pencils with a cutter knife, so I use sharpeners, but I have not found a good one yet. Like, these ones are good until they get worn off 2 weeks later, and yeah, they're done. And now my favorite papers. I like to use the Bristol Smooth Surface by Strathmore. Also, the Arches Hot Press 300 GSM paper. I love this one, it feels super premium. And finally, I use tracing paper to protect my drawings and also under my hand while I'm drawing so that I don't smudge or ruin it. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it until here, this video took like 30 hours to edit, so I really appreciate you making it until the end.